The auctioneer's gavel cracked against the wooden podium like a gunshot, and Adam Whitmore felt his heart slam against his ribcage as he realized what he had just done. The year was 1878, and the dusty town square of Beaver, Utah was packed with men who had come to bid on the latest shipment of mail-order brides. But Adam had not planned on being one of them until he saw her standing there on that platform, her eyes covered with a white cloth bandage, her hands trembling as she reached out blindly for something to steady herself. "Sold to the gentleman in the brown hat for $200, the auctioneer announced, and Adam removed his Stetson, wiping the sweat from his brow despite the cool October air. He had just spent nearly every cent he had saved from 3 years of ranch work, and he did not even know the woman's name. The crowd dispersed, some men leading their new brides away with varying degrees of gentleness, and Adam approached the platform slowly, his boots heavy against the packed dirt. She stood perfectly still, her head tilted slightly as if trying to hear him approach over the commotion. "Madam," he said softly when he reached her side, not wanting to startle her. "My name is Adam Whitmore. I'm the man who just purchased your contract." Her lips pressed together in a thin line, and he could see her jaw tighten. She was perhaps 20 years old, with dark hair that had been hastily pinned up and a traveling dress that had seen better days. Even with the bandage covering half her face, he could tell she was beautiful, but that was not why he had bid on her. He had seen the way the other men looked at her, the predatory gleam in their eyes when they realized she could not see them coming, and something in his chest had twisted painfully. "My name is Zara Lawson," she said, her voice steady despite the obvious fear she must have been feeling. "I suppose I should thank you for buying me like livestock." The bitterness in her tone was warranted, and Adam felt his face flush. "I know this situation is not ideal, Miss Lawson, but I give you my word that I will treat you with respect. You have my word on that." She turned her head in his direction, and even through the bandage, he could sense her skepticism. The word of a stranger who just bought a blind woman at auction. Forgive me if I do not find that particularly reassuring. Adam reached out slowly, then stopped himself, remembering she could not see the gesture. "May I help you down from the platform?" After a long moment, she extended her hand, and he took it gently, guiding her down the steps. Her hand was small in his, calloused in a way that suggested she was no stranger to hard work, and she moved carefully, testing each step before committing her weight. "I have a wagon just over here," he said, keeping his voice low and calm. "It's about a 2-hour ride to my ranch. We can stop in town first if you need anything." "What I need is my sight back," Zara said sharply, then seemed to catch herself. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was more controlled. "I apologize. That was unkind. This situation is not your fault." "What happened to your eyes, if you do not mind my asking?" They had reached the wagon, and Adam helped her up onto the seat, noting how she immediately reached out to orient herself, her fingers finding the edge of the bench, the support beam, the side rail. "There was a fire," she said once he had climbed up beside her and taken the reins. 3 months ago, back in Pennsylvania. My father's shop burned down with him inside it. I tried to go in after him, and something exploded. The doctor said there was damage to my eyes from the heat and smoke. He said I might never see again." Adam clicked his tongue, and the horses started forward at a gentle pace. "I am sorry about your father." "Are you?" Zara's voice was flat. "You do not know me or him. You do not need to pretend to care." "I am not pretending," Adam said quietly. "I lost my own father 5 years ago. I know what that grief feels like." She was silent for a long moment, and he thought perhaps he had overstepped, but then she said, "How did he die?" "Thrown from a horse. Broke his neck. It was quick, at least." "My father burned alive," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. I could hear him screaming, and I could not reach him. That is the last thing I remember seeing clearly, the flames. Now all I see is darkness, and sometimes shapes that might be light, but I cannot be certain if I am imagining them. Adam felt something crack open inside his chest. He had bid on her out of a sense of protection, out of not wanting to see her fall into the hands of men like Carson Mills or Dutch Henderson, who were known for treating women poorly. But now, hearing her story, he felt something else stirring, something that felt dangerously like the beginning of caring about someone. "The ranch is not much," he said, changing the subject because he could hear the tears she was fighting to hold back. "Just a small spread with about 30 head of cattle and some horses. I have a house with 2 bedrooms, so you will have your privacy. There is a woman named Martha who lives about a mile down the road. She comes by twice a week to help with the heavier cleaning and cooking, though I am warning you now that I am a terrible cook myself." "What exactly do you expect from me?" Zara asked, and there was steel in her voice despite her obvious vulnerability. "You paid $200 for a blind woman who cannot cook or clean or do any of the things a wife is supposed to do. What possible use could I be to you?" Adam considered his words carefully. "I expect you to heal. I expect you to live without fear. Beyond that, I have no expectations." "You must want something," she insisted. "Men do not spend that kind of money without wanting something in return." "I want you safe," Adam said simply. "That is all." Zara laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "You are either the kindest man in Utah or the most skilled liar. I cannot decide which." "I suppose time will tell," Adam said, and they rode in silence for a while. The landscape of Utah stretched out around them, the high desert terrain dotted with sagebrush and juniper trees. The sky was vast and blue, the kind of endless expanse that made a man feel both small and infinite at the same time. Adam had fallen in love with this land when he first arrived from Missouri 3 years ago, fleeing memories of a woman who had chosen another man and a family home that no longer felt like home after his father died. "Tell me what it looks like," Zara said suddenly, surprising him. "What?" "The world. I know we are moving, I can feel the wagon and hear the horses, but I cannot see anything. Tell me what you see." Adam cleared his throat, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "Well, we are on a dirt road that cuts through open country. The land is mostly flat here, with gentle rises and falls like ocean waves frozen in time. There is sagebrush everywhere, gray-green and dusty, and juniper trees scattered around, twisted and tough-looking. The sky is bright blue without a cloud in sight, and the sun is starting to drop toward the western horizon. In the distance, you can see mountains, purple and hazy in the afternoon light." "It sounds beautiful," Zara said softly. "It is," Adam agreed. "Harsh but beautiful. Like most worthwhile things, I suppose." They rode for another hour, and Adam kept up a running commentary, describing everything from the rabbit that darted across their path to the hawk circling overhead. Zara listened intently, her head turning toward each sound, and gradually he could see some of the tension leave her shoulders. The ranch appeared as they crested a small rise, a modest house built from local timber and stone, with a barn, a corral, and a few outbuildings scattered around. It was not much to look at, but Adam had built most of it with his own hands, and he was proud of what he had accomplished. "We are here," he said, bringing the wagon to a stop in front of the house. "Let me help you down." This time, when he offered his hand, Zara took it without hesitation. He guided her carefully, warning her about the step down and then the 3 steps up to the porch. "The front door is straight ahead," he said. "There are 3 steps up to the porch, and then the door is about 6 feet forward." "You are very precise," Zara observed. "I figure precision might be helpful for you," Adam said. Inside, the main room is about 20 feet across. The fireplace is on the left wall and there is a kitchen area on the right. 2 doors on the back wall lead to the bedrooms. There is also a cellar accessed from outside and an outhouse about 30 yards behind the house. He opened the door and guided her inside, watching as she immediately began to orient herself, her hands reaching out to feel the walls, the door frame, the back of the chair near the entrance. "This is your home now," Adam said. "Or at least until you decide otherwise. You are not a prisoner here, Miss Lawson. If you want to leave, I will take you wherever you want to go." Zara turned toward him, her bandaged face unreadable. "And go where? I have no money, no family, and no sight. I am trapped by circumstance if not by your command." "You are not trapped," Adam said firmly. "You are safe. There is a difference." "Is there?" she asked, but her voice was softer now, less defensive. Adam showed her through the house room by room, describing everything in detail, and letting her touch whatever she wanted to familiarize herself with the space. The bedroom he gave her was the larger of the two, with a real bed frame and mattress, a dresser, and a window that faced east to catch the morning sun. "I will put fresh sheets on the bed," he said, "and there should be some women's clothes in the dresser. They belonged to the previous owner's daughter. She moved to California last year and left them behind." "Why did you buy this place?" Zara asked. "Why Utah? Needed a fresh start," Adam said, pulling sheets from the linen closet in the hallway. "Missouri had too many memories. I had heard there was good land out here for a man willing to work hard, and I liked the idea of building something of my own." "Do you regret it?" "Not for a single day," Adam said honestly. He moved to the bed and began spreading the sheets. "Even when the work is backbreaking and the winters are harsh, I have never regretted it. This land makes sense to me in a way that civilization never did." Zara moved carefully to the window, her fingers finding the sill. "I can feel warmth here. Is this where the sun comes in?" "Yes, in the mornings. It is a good spot to sit if you want to feel the sunlight." She smiled then, the first real smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face entirely. "I would like that." Over the next few weeks, they settled into an uneasy routine. Adam woke before dawn each day to tend to the animals and work on the various repairs and projects that came with running a ranch. Zara learned to navigate the house with increasing confidence, and although she could not cook well yet, she insisted on trying. Despite several burned meals and one incident with spilled flour that left them both laughing despite themselves. Martha came by on Wednesdays and Saturdays, a stout woman in her 50s with a practical manner and kind eyes. She took to Zara immediately, teaching her tricks for managing the household tasks without sight, and Adam often came in from work to find the two women talking and laughing in the kitchen. "That girl has steel in her spine," Martha told him one afternoon when Zara had gone to lie down, exhausted from a morning of learning to knead bread by touch alone. "She has been through hell, but she is not letting it break her." "I can see that," Adam said, washing his hands in the basin by the door. "You are good for her," Martha continued, giving him a knowing look. "Patient, kind, not many men would be." Adam felt his face heat. "I am just trying to help, Martha said, clearly not believing him for a second. "And how long do you think you can keep pretending you are not falling for her?" "Martha." "Do not Martha me, Adam Whitmore. I have eyes. I see the way you look at her when she is not aware of it. I see how you describe everything to her like you are trying to give her the whole world through words alone. That is not just kindness. That is love taking root." Adam sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. "It does not matter what I feel. She has been through too much, lost too much. The last thing she needs is me putting pressure on her or making her feel obligated because I bought her contract." So you admit you have feelings for her? I admit nothing, Adam said, but he could not quite meet Martha's eyes. Martha laughed and patted his shoulder. You are a good man, Adam. She will see that eventually. Or, well, you know what I mean. Despite Martha's teasing, Adam was careful to maintain appropriate boundaries. He always knocked before entering Zara's room, always asked permission before touching her arm to guide her, always gave her space when she needed it. But he could not quite stop himself from the small gestures of care. Making sure her favorite spot by the window had a comfortable chair, describing the sunset in elaborate detail every evening, reading to her from the newspapers that came in from Salt Lake City. One evening in late November, about 6 weeks after Zara's arrival, a storm rolled in with dramatic intensity. Thunder shook the house, and rain lashed against the windows with a sound like thrown gravel. Adam was sitting by the fire, mending a broken bridle, when he heard a cry from Zara's room. He was on his feet instantly, crossing the house in long strides. Zara, are you all right? I am sorry. Her voice came from behind the door, shaking. I am being foolish. May I come in? Yes. He opened the door to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, her arms wrapped around herself. The bandage around her eyes was askew, as though she had been rubbing at them. What is wrong? Adam asked, kneeling in front of her but not touching her. The thunder, she said, and he could hear the embarrassment in her voice. It sounds like the explosion, the one that took my sight. I know it is just a storm, but I cannot stop remembering. That is not foolish, Adam said gently. Memories like that do not just disappear because we want them to. Another crack of thunder made her flinch, and without thinking, Adam reached out and took her hand. I am right here. You are safe. To his surprise, Zara gripped his hand tightly, holding on like he was an anchor in a storm-tossed sea. They sat like that for a long moment, and then she said, Will you stay? Just until the storm passes. Of course. Adam pulled the chair from beside her dresser and positioned it near the bed, keeping hold of her hand. He began to talk, telling her stories about his childhood in Missouri, about learning to ride horses from his father, about the time he and his brother had tried to catch catfish with their bare hands and both ended up covered in mud and failure. He talked until her grip on his hand loosened, until her breathing evened out, until the storm passed and left only the gentle sound of rain behind. When he finally stood to leave, thinking she had fallen asleep, her voice stopped him. Adam? Yes, thank you for everything. I know I have not been particularly grateful, and I am sorry for that. You have been nothing but kind, and I have been defensive and difficult. You have been hurt and scared and dealing with more than most people could handle, Adam said. You do not need to apologize for that. Still, Zara said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Thank you. Winter came to Utah with teeth and claws, bringing snow that turned the landscape into something alien and beautiful. Adam described it all to Zara in vivid detail. The way the snow caught on the branches of the juniper trees, the tracks of rabbits and deer crisscrossing the white expanse, the brilliant blue of the sky against the blinding white of fresh snow. On Christmas Day, Martha came for dinner, bringing a ham and fresh bread. The three of them sat around the kitchen table, and Adam realized with a start that he had not felt this content in years, maybe ever. Zara laughed at Martha's stories about the other ranchers in the area, her face bright with genuine happiness, and Adam found himself memorizing the moment, tucking it away like a treasure. After Martha left, as the winter darkness fell early and complete, Zara asked Adam to describe what the house looked like decorated for Christmas. He told her about the small pine tree he had cut and placed in the corner, the candles on the mantel, the wreath Martha had helped him weave from juniper boughs. I wish I could see it, Zara said wistfully. I wish I could see any of it. Your doctor said there was a chance your sight might return, Adam reminded her gently. We have to hold on to hope. Hope feels dangerous, Zara admitted. Every day I wake up to darkness, and every day I have to accept again that this might be forever. Sometimes I think it would be easier to just give up on the idea of ever seeing again. But you have not given up, Adam said. I can tell. How? Because you keep asking me to describe things. Because you memorize every detail I give you. Because you are building a picture of this world in your mind even though you cannot see it with your eyes. That is not giving up. That is fighting. Zara was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, You see me more clearly than anyone ever has, Adam Whitmore. Even when I could see, I do not think anyone really looked at me the way you do. Adam felt his heart hammering in his chest, and he wanted desperately to tell her what he was feeling, to put words to the love that had been growing inside him like something wild and unstoppable. But the timing felt wrong, the power imbalance too great. She was still dependent on him for everything, still vulnerable, and he would not take advantage of that. You make it easy, he said instead. You are remarkable, Zara Lawson. January brought a cold snap that tested every aspect of the ranch. Several of the cattle got sick, and Adam spent long days and nights in the barn, nursing them back to health. Zara worried when he did not come in for meals, and she began bringing food to him, learning the path from the house to the barn by counting steps and memorizing the feel of the ground beneath her feet. You are going to work yourself to death, she scolded him one evening, finding him hunched over a sick calf, rubbing feeling back into its legs. This calf will die if I do not, Adam said, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. And what good will you be to your ranch if you collapse from exhaustion? Zara demanded. She felt her way to where he was sitting and, to his surprise, sat down beside him in the hay. Show me what to do, I can help. Zara, you do not have to show me, she insisted. Please, I am so tired of being useless. You are not useless, Adam said firmly. But if you want to help, I will not turn you away. He guided her hands to the calf, showing her how to rub its legs to encourage circulation, how to feel for the rhythm of its breathing. They worked together through the night, taking turns with the sick animals while the other rested. By morning, the calf was standing on shaky legs, and Adam and Zara were covered in hay and exhaustion. We did it, Zara said, a note of wonder in her voice. She was smiling, and there was a smudge of dirt across her cheek that Adam desperately wanted to wipe away. You did it, Adam corrected. You saved that calf's life. We make a good team, Zara said, and the simplicity of the statement hit Adam with unexpected force. Yes, he agreed quietly. We do. February came, and with it, the first hints that winter might eventually release its grip. The days grew incrementally longer, and the snow began to melt in patches, revealing the brown earth beneath. Zara had been at the ranch for 4 months now, and the house felt different with her in it, more alive somehow, more like a home than a place to sleep between work. One morning, Adam came in from the barn to find Zara standing by the kitchen window, her bandaged face turned toward the light. She had been seeing a doctor in town every 2 weeks, and he had been cautiously optimistic about her progress. But so far, there had been no real change. Good morning, Adam said, hanging his coat by the door. Adam, Zara said, and there was something strange in her voice. I think I see something. He was across the room in an instant. What do you mean? Light, she said, her hand reaching up toward the bandage. I think I can see light. Not just feel the warmth of the sun, but actually see it. Or am I imagining it? I do not know, Adam said, his heart racing. Should we get the bandage off? Should we wait for the doctor? I cannot wait, Zara said, and her hands were already moving to the knot at the back of her head. Adam helped her, his fingers clumsy with urgency and fear. What if she was wrong? What if removing the bandage somehow made things worse? But Zara was insistent, and together they unwound the layers of cloth until her eyes were finally exposed. She blinked, squinting against the light, and Adam held his breath. "I can see shapes," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can see light and shadow. I can see, oh God, Adam, I can see." Tears were streaming down her face, and Adam felt his own eyes burning. "Can you see me?" Zara turned toward him, and he watched as her eyes tried to focus, as the world she had been blind to for months slowly came back into view. Her eyes were a deep green, he realized, the color of pine trees after rain. "You are blurry," she said, reaching out to touch his face as if to confirm he was real. "But I can see you. I can see your outline, your height. I can see that you have dark hair and you are wearing a blue shirt." "It is blue," Adam confirmed, and he could not stop smiling even as tears ran down his cheeks. "Can you see anything else?" Zara looked around the room slowly, and he could see the wonder on her face. The window, the light coming through, the table, the fireplace. "It is all still blurry, but I can see it." "Adam, I can see it." She threw her arms around him, and Adam held her tight, feeling her shake with sobs and laughter all mixed together. He pressed his face into her hair and let himself feel the pure joy of the moment. Let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be all right. Over the next few days, Zara's vision continued to improve. The doctor came out from town and examined her thoroughly, declaring it a minor miracle and cautioning that her sight might never return to perfect clarity, but that the improvement was significant and seemed likely to continue. "You are a very lucky young woman," the doctor said, packing up his instruments. "Lucky," Zara repeated, testing the word. "Yes, I suppose I am." But as her sight returned, something shifted between her and Adam. She was no longer dependent on him in the same way, no longer needed his constant descriptions and guidance. She could navigate the house on her own now, could cook and clean without assistance, could look out the window and see the world for herself. Adam told himself he should be happy about her increased independence, and he was, truly. But he could not shake the fear that now that she could see, now that she had her freedom back, she would realize she did not need him anymore. She would realize she could leave, could build a life somewhere else with someone else, someone she had chosen rather than someone who had bought her at an auction like a piece of property. He caught her watching him sometimes, her newly focused eyes following him with an expression he could not quite read. Did she see him differently now? Was she disappointed by what she saw? One evening, about a week after her sight had returned, Zara found him on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. "It is even more beautiful than you described," she said, sitting down beside him on the steps. "And you described it very well." "There are some things words cannot quite capture," Adam said. "Like you," Zara said, and Adam turned to look at her in surprise. "What? All these months, I built a picture of you in my mind based on your voice, your actions, your kindness. But now that I can see you, I realize my imagination did not do you justice." Adam felt his face heat. "Zara, let me finish," she said, and there was a determination in her voice that reminded him of the first day he met her, when she had stood on that auction platform with her chin up despite her fear. "All these months, you have been patient with me. You have been kind and respectful, and you have never once treated me like I was anything less than a full person, even when I was completely dependent on you. You have given me safety and space to heal, and you have never asked for anything in return." "I did not do it expecting anything," Adam said quietly. "I know," Zara said, and she reached out and took his hand. "That is exactly my point. You are a good man, Adam Whitmore, the best man I have ever known, And now that I can finally see you, really see you, I need to tell you something." Adam's heart was racing so hard he was sure she could hear it. "What is that?" "I am in love with you," Zara said simply. "I think I have been falling in love with you since the day you brought me here and told me I was safe. But I could not say anything when I was blind because I was afraid you would think I was just grateful or dependent or mistaking kindness for love. But now I can see, and I know the difference. This is not gratitude. This is love." Adam felt like all the air had been knocked out of his lungs. "You love me." "Yes," Zara said, and she was smiling even though there were tears in her eyes. "Is that all right?" Instead of answering with words, Adam cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but then Zara made a small sound of happiness and kissed him back with an intensity that made his head spin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adam pressed his forehead against hers. "I have been in love with you for months," he admitted. "I have been terrified to tell you because I did not want you to feel pressured or obligated. I did not want you to think I expected anything from you just because I bought your contract." "You did not buy me," Zara said firmly. "You bought my freedom from men who would have hurt me. There is a difference." "I should have told you sooner," Adam said. "I should have told you every day how remarkable you are, how brave, how beautiful." "You did tell me," Zara said, smiling. "Maybe not in those exact words, but I heard it in everything you said and did. I heard it in the way you described the sunset like you were trying to give me a gift. I heard it in the way you sat with me during the storm. I heard it in the way you taught me to save that calf. You have been telling me you love me since the beginning. I was just too scared to believe it." They sat on the porch steps until the stars came out, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the future that now felt possible in a way it had not before. When the night grew too cold to stay outside any longer, Adam walked Zara to her bedroom door and kissed her goodnight with a tenderness that made her sigh against his lips. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too," she whispered back. "And tomorrow I want to see everything. I want you to take me around the ranch and show me all the places you have described to me. I want to see it all through both my eyes and yours." "It would be my honor," Adam said. The next morning dawned clear and bright, and Adam took Zara on a tour of the ranch. They walked through the barn, where she met each of the horses and cattle, running her hands over their necks while finally being able to see their faces. They walked the property line, and Adam showed her the small creek that ran through the eastern pasture, the grove of cottonwoods where he sometimes went to think, the rocky outcropping that offered a view of the valley below. "It is perfect," Zara said, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "It is all so perfect." "It is better with you here," Adam said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. That evening, Martha came by for her usual visit and found them sitting close together on the porch, Adam's arm around Zara's shoulders, Zara's head resting against his chest. "Well," Martha said, a smile spreading across her face, "I see things have progressed." "We are getting married," Zara announced, and Adam looked down at her in surprise because they had not actually discussed that yet, but the rightness of it settled into his chest like something that had always been there, just waiting to be acknowledged. "Is that a proposal?" he asked, amused. "It is if you are accepting," Zara said, grinning up at him. "Then yes," Adam said, and he kissed her right there in front of Martha, not caring who saw. "Yes, I am accepting." Martha laughed and wiped at her eyes. "It is about time. I will start spreading the word. We will have a proper wedding right here on the ranch." They were married 6 weeks later, on the first day of April when the desert was beginning to bloom with wildflowers, and the air smelled like sage and possibility. Half the town of Beaver turned out for the celebration. curious to see the woman who had been bought at auction and the man who had treated her like a queen. The ceremony was held outside, with the mountains as their backdrop and the endless sky as their ceiling. Zara wore a dress that Martha and several of the other ranch women had sewn together, white linen with delicate embroidery at the cuffs and collar. Adam wore his best suit, the one he had not worn since leaving Missouri, and when Zara walked toward him through the crowd of well-wishers, he had to blink back tears. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen," he whispered when she reached his side. "You are pretty handsome yourself," she whispered back, her green eyes sparkling with happiness. The preacher from town performed the ceremony, and when he pronounced them husband and wife, Adam kissed Zara with such joy and tenderness that several of the women in attendance had to dab at their eyes. The celebration lasted well into the night, with food and music and dancing, and Adam held Zara in his arms and swayed to the fiddle music, and thought that he had never been happier in his entire life. When the guests finally departed and the ranch fell quiet again, Adam carried Zara over the threshold of their home, making her laugh with the theatrical gallantry of the gesture. "We are already inside," she protested, still giggling. "Let me have my moment," Adam said, grinning. "I have been dreaming about this for months." He carried her to the bedroom, the one that had been hers but was now theirs, and set her down gently. The nervousness he had expected to feel was absent, replaced instead by a deep sense of rightness. This was where he was meant to be with this woman in this moment. "I love you," Zara said, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes." "I love you too," Adam said. And then words became unnecessary as they came together with a passion and tenderness that spoke of all the months of waiting, all the fear and hope and growing love that had brought them to this moment. Life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm, one that felt full and rich in a way that Adam's solitary existence never had. Zara proved to be a quick learner and a hard worker, throwing herself into the daily tasks with enthusiasm. She learned to manage the chickens they bought that spring, to help with the branding of the new calves, to ride the gentlest of the horses with increasing confidence. "I never knew I could be this happy," she told Adam one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, a ritual they had maintained from those early days when she could not see it but wanted to hear about it. "Neither did I," Adam admitted, his arm around her shoulders. "When I bought your contract that day, I thought I was just saving you from something bad. I never imagined I was bringing home the person who would make my life complete." "Do you think things happen for a reason?" Zara asked, leaning into his warmth. "Do you think we were always meant to find each other? I think we were both running from pain and loss, and somehow we ran toward each other instead of away," Adam said thoughtfully. "I do not know if that is fate or luck or just the strange way life works sometimes, but I am grateful for it either way." Summer came, hot and bright, and the ranch flourished under their combined care. They expanded the herd, added more chickens, and planted a vegetable garden that Zara tended with fierce determination, despite her limited experience with growing things. "I think I killed the tomatoes," she said one afternoon, standing in the garden with her hands on her hips and a frown on her face. Adam came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "They are just thirsty. This heat is brutal on everything." "How can you tell? See how the leaves are drooping. They need water. Come on, I will help you." They spent the next hour hauling water from the creek, and by the time they were done, both were soaked and laughing. Adam chased Zara around the garden, threatening to dump a bucket of water over her head, and she shrieked with laughter as she ran, her hair coming loose from its pins and flying behind her. "You would not dare," she said, backing away from him with her hands up. "Would I not?" Adam asked, advancing on her with a wicked grin. She tried to duck around him, but he was faster, catching her around the waist and spinning her around. The bucket tipped, and water went everywhere, drenching them both. They stood there dripping and laughing, and then Adam was kissing her, tasting creek water and sunshine on her lips. "We are making a mess," Zara said against his mouth, not sounding at all concerned about it. "We can clean up later," Adam said, and he lifted her into his arms and carried her into the house, leaving wet footprints across the floor they would mop up hours later, after they had reminded each other in the most intimate way possible why they had fallen in love in the first place. August brought news that made them both nervous and excited. Zara had been feeling ill in the mornings, and Martha, with her years of experience, had taken one look at her and declared what Zara had begun to suspect. She was pregnant. "We are going to have a baby," Zara said that evening, sitting beside Adam on the porch, her hand clasped tightly in his. "A baby," Adam repeated, and his voice was full of wonder. He placed his hand on her still flat stomach, trying to imagine the life growing there. "Our baby. Are you happy?" Zara asked, suddenly uncertain. "Happy?" Adam turned to look at her, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Zara, I am more than happy. I am overwhelmed. I am terrified. I am grateful beyond words. We are going to be parents." "We are going to be terrible at it," Zara said, but she was smiling. "Probably," Adam agreed. "But we will figure it out together, just like we figure out everything else." The pregnancy was not easy. Zara was sick frequently, and there were days when she could barely get out of bed. Adam worried constantly, fussing over her in a way that she found both endearing and irritating. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told him one morning when he tried to insist she stay in bed instead of helping with the morning chores. "I know," Adam said. "But you are carrying something precious, and I want to take care of you." "You do take care of me," Zara said, softening. "But I need to feel useful too. I need to feel like myself, not like some fragile thing that might break." They compromised, with Zara doing lighter tasks and Adam hovering nearby in case she needed help. As her belly grew and the pregnancy became visible, Adam found himself constantly amazed by the changes in her body, by the visible evidence of the life they had created together. "Talk to the baby," Zara said one night as they lay in bed, Adam's hand resting on the swell of her stomach. "What should I say?" "I do not know. Introduce yourself. Tell them about the ranch. Tell them about us." Adam felt foolish, but he shifted down in the bed until his face was level with her belly. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "I am your father. Your mother and I cannot wait to meet you. We are going to teach you everything we know about this land, about being kind and brave and true. We are going to love you more than you can possibly imagine." Zara ran her fingers through his hair, tears streaming down her face. "That was perfect," she whispered. Winter came again, and with it, increased anxiety about the approaching birth. The doctor in town had examined Zara and declared her healthy and the baby strong. But Adam could not shake his fear that something would go wrong, that he would lose her the way his father had lost his mother in childbirth years ago. "I am not going anywhere," Zara assured him when she caught him watching her with worried eyes. "I am strong and this baby is strong. We are going to be fine." "You cannot promise that," Adam said, his voice rough. "No," Zara agreed. "But I can promise that I will fight with everything I have to come back to you. You saved my life, Adam. You gave me a reason to keep living when I thought I had lost everything. I am not giving up on us now." The baby came in late February, during a snowstorm that buried the ranch under 2 feet of white. Martha had moved into the spare room a week earlier, anticipating that the birth was close, and when Zara's labor started in the early hours of the morning, Adam was grateful beyond measure for the older woman's presence and experience. "You need to boil water and get clean linens," Martha ordered, and Adam jumped to obey, grateful to have something to do besides stand by helplessly and watch Zara in pain. The labor lasted 14 hours, and it was the longest day of Adam's life. He held Zara's hand when she would let him, wiped her face with cool cloths, and felt utterly useless in the face of her pain. "I cannot do this," Zara gasped at one point, her face pale and drawn. "Yes, you can," Adam said firmly. "You are the strongest person I know. You survived losing your sight. You survived being alone and afraid. You can survive this." "Easy for you to say," Zara said, and then another contraction hit and she squeezed his hand so hard he thought bones might break, but he did not complain. Finally, as the winter afternoon faded into evening, a new sound filled the house, the thin, reedy cry of a newborn baby. Adam felt tears streaming down his face as Martha wrapped the baby in a clean blanket and placed the tiny bundle in Zara's arms. "You have a son," Martha said, her own eyes wet. "A healthy, beautiful boy." Zara looked down at the baby with an expression of such pure love and wonder that Adam felt his heart might burst. "He is perfect," she whispered. "Adam, look at him. He is perfect." Adam moved closer and the baby opened his eyes, dark blue and unfocused, looking up at his parents as if trying to memorize their faces. Adam reached out with one finger and stroked the baby's cheek, marveling at the softness of his skin. "Hello, son," he said, his voice breaking. "Welcome to the world." They named him Andrew after Adam's father and settled into the exhausting, exhilarating routine of new parenthood. The ranch work still needed to be done, and Adam found himself running on very little sleep, but he had never been happier. Coming in from the cold to find Zara nursing the baby by the fire, humming softly, felt like walking into a piece of heaven. "I was thinking," Zara said one evening when Andrew was about 3 months old and finally sleeping for longer stretches at night. "We should think about buying some of the contracts at the next auction." Adam looked up from where he was repairing a broken harness. "What do you mean? Women are still being sold like cattle," Zara said, her voice passionate. "Women who are vulnerable and afraid just like I was. We have room here. We could help them find their feet, help them find work or passage to wherever they want to go. We could give them what you gave me, a chance." Adam set down the harness and moved to sit beside her on the sofa. "Are you sure? That is a big undertaking, and we have Andrew to think about now." "That is exactly why I want to do it," Zara said. "I want our son to grow up seeing that we help people when we can. I want him to understand that being strong means protecting those who are weaker, not taking advantage of them." "You are remarkable," Adam said, cupping her face in his hands. "How did I get so lucky?" "It was not luck," Zara said, echoing the conversation they had had so many months ago on this very porch. "It was love. It was choice. It was you being a good man and me being brave enough to trust you." Over the next few years, they did exactly what Zara had proposed. They bought contracts for 3 different women at the auctions, each one with her own story of loss and hardship. They gave them safe places to stay, helped them find work in town, or passage to other places where they had family or opportunities. One of the women, Sarah, ended up marrying a shopkeeper in Beaver and remained a close friend. Another, Clara, saved enough money to travel to California and start her own dressmaking business. The ranch prospered. Growing from the small operation, Adam had started to something more substantial. They bought more land, expanded the herd, and built an addition onto the house to accommodate their growing family. Andrew was joined by a sister, Emma, when he was 2, and then another boy, Nathan, 2 years after that. "We are building something important here," Adam said one evening, looking out at the land that had become so much more than just a ranch. It was a home, a sanctuary, a place where broken people could heal and find themselves again. "We are building a legacy," Zara corrected, leaning against his side. "Something that will last long after we are gone." The years passed in a blur of hard work and deep happiness. Andrew grew tall and serious, with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. He learned to ride before he could write his name properly, and he had a gentle way with animals that reminded Adam of his own father. Emma was fierce and independent, always covered in dirt from helping in the garden or exploring the property. Nathan was the youngest and the wildest, constantly getting into trouble but with such a sweet nature that it was impossible to stay angry with him. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam took Zara back to the place where they had first kissed, the porch steps where she had told him she loved him. The children were with Martha for the night, giving them rare time alone. "You remember the day we met?" Adam asked, pulling her close. "Every detail," Zara said. "I remember being terrified. I remember hearing your voice and thinking you sounded kind, but I did not trust kindness anymore. I thought you would turn out to be like all the rest. And now I know that you are the best thing that ever happened to me," Zara said simply. "You gave me back my life, Adam, not just my sight, but my life, my hope, my ability to trust and love. Everything I am now, everything we have built together, started the day you decided to bid on a blind woman at an auction instead of walking away." "I could never have walked away from you," Adam said. "Even then, when I did not know your name or your story, something in me recognized you. My heart knew before my head did." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in the brilliant colors that Adam had once described to Zara when she could not see them. Now she could see them for herself, but she still loved to hear him describe the world, loved the poetry he brought to even simple observations. "Tell me what you see," she said, echoing the request she had made so many times before, in darkness and in light. "I see the woman I love," Adam said, turning to look at her instead of the sunset. "I see someone who is brave and strong and beautiful. I see the mother of my children, the partner who works beside me every day, the person who makes every moment better just by being in it. I see my wife, my best friend, my whole heart." Zara kissed him then, slow and deep, tasting of tears and love and all the years they had shared and all the years still to come. They grew older together, watching their children grow and eventually start families of their own. Andrew married a woman from Salt Lake City and took over the day-to-day running of the ranch. Emma became a teacher in Beaver, fighting passionately for education reform and women's rights. Nathan traveled for a few years before settling down with a ranch of his own just over the next ridge. Adam's hair went gray, and his hands grew rough and scarred from decades of hard work, but he never lost the gentleness that had first drawn Zara to him. Zara's sight remained, though it was never perfect, and sometimes on difficult days, she still needed Adam to describe things for her, to fill in the details her eyes could not quite capture. They were sitting on the porch one evening, both well into their 60s, when Zara said, "Do you ever think about that auction? About what would have happened if you had not bid on me?" "All the time," Adam admitted, "and it terrifies me. The thought of you ending up with someone who would have hurt you, or me living out my days alone in this house, never knowing what I was missing. It keeps me up at night sometimes." "But it did not happen that way," Zara said, taking his hand. "You did bid on me. You did save me. And we did build this beautiful life together." "We did," Adam agreed, "and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Every moment, every struggle, every joy, all of it. Even when I burned dinner for 3 months straight," Adam laughed. "Even then." Even when I accidentally let all the chickens out and you had to chase them down. Even then. Even when I told you I was pregnant for the fourth time and you turned white as a sheet. There was a fourth pregnancy, Adam asked, startled. No, Zara said, grinning. I just wanted to see if you were still paying attention. Adam pulled her close and kissed her temple. I am always paying attention to you. You are the most interesting thing in my world. As the years continued to pass, they became the patriarch and matriarch of a large and loving family. Grandchildren came, and then great-grandchildren, and the ranch that Adam had started alone became a thriving enterprise that employed dozens of people and supported multiple families. They never stopped helping women in need. Even as they aged, they found ways to contribute to the cause that Zara had started so many years ago. They donated money to organizations that helped women leave abusive situations. They spoke out against the practice of selling women at auction. And they used their own story as an example of what was possible when people chose kindness over cruelty. On their 50th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren filled the house and spilled out into the yard, and Adam stood on the porch looking out at the legacy he and Zara had built together, and felt a peace so profound it was almost overwhelming. What are you thinking about? Zara asked, coming up beside him and slipping her hand into his. Her hair was white now, and her face was lined with age, but to Adam, she was as beautiful as she had been on their wedding day. I am thinking about how grateful I am, Adam said. For all of this, for you, for the life we have built. I am thinking about that young man who bid on a blind woman at an auction, and I am proud of him for being brave enough to listen to his heart. I am thinking about that scared young woman who was sold like property, Zara said. And I am proud of her for being brave enough to trust a stranger who showed her kindness. They stood together, watching their family celebrate, and Andrew came over with his wife and children, followed by Emma and Nathan and their families. The porch filled with people, all of them connected by the love that Adam and Zara had started so many years ago. Tell us the story again, one of the great-grandchildren said, a little girl with Zara's green eyes and Adam's dark hair. Tell us about how you met. Adam looked at Zara, and she nodded, both of them settling into chairs while the family gathered around. It was 1878, Adam began, his voice still strong despite his age. And I was at an auction in Beaver, Utah, not planning to buy anything except maybe some tools. But then I saw your great-grandmother standing on that platform, and something in my heart told me I could not walk away. I was scared, Zara continued, picking up the story. I could not see, and I did not know if I would ever see again. I thought my life was over. But then I heard your great-grandfather's voice, and even though I did not trust him at first, there was something kind in his tone. They told the story together, the way they had done dozens of times before, but it never got old. The children listened with rapt attention, and when they got to the part where Zara's sight returned and she saw Adam for the first time, several people wiped at their eyes. That is the most romantic story ever, the little girl said when they finished. It is the truest story I know, Adam said, looking at Zara with all the love he had felt for 50 years shining in his eyes, because it is ours. They lived to see their 60th wedding anniversary, a milestone few couples reached. By then, Adam's body was failing, years of hard ranch work taking their toll. He spent more time sitting than standing, more time remembering than planning, but his mind stayed sharp and his love for Zara never dimmed. One evening in late spring, as the desert bloomed with wildflowers and the air smelled sweet, Adam and Zara sat on the porch one last time. Adam's breathing was labored, and they both knew the end was close. "I am not afraid," Adam said, holding Zara's hand. "I have had a good life. A wonderful life. I have been loved by the best woman I ever met, and I have no regrets." "I am afraid," Zara admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I do not know how to be in this world without you." "You will be fine," Adam said gently. "You are the strongest person I know. And I will not really be gone. I will be in every sunset you watch from this porch. I will be in the land we love together. I will be in our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I will be in your heart, the same way you have been in mine since the day I first saw you." "I love you," Zara said. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Adam said. "Thank you for saying yes to me all those years ago. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me. Thank you for being mine." He died that night peacefully in his sleep with Zara holding his hand. The grief was overwhelming, but it was also proof of how deeply they had loved each other. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people, all of them touched in some way by Adam's kindness and generosity. Zara lived for 5 more years after Adam's death, staying on the ranch with Andrew and his family. She spent her days surrounded by the legacy they had built together, and she never stopped telling their story to anyone who would listen. When she finally passed away, peacefully in her sleep like Adam had, the family buried her beside him on a hill overlooking the ranch. They placed a simple headstone that read, "Adam and Zara Whitmore. They loved well and were well loved." The ranch continued to thrive, passed down through generations, and the story of the man who bought a blind bride at auction and loved her for the rest of his life became something of a legend in Beaver, Utah. People told it as an example of how love could bloom in the most unlikely circumstances, how kindness could change lives, how two people who had every reason to be broken found healing in each other instead. And on quiet evenings, when the sun set over the Utah desert in shades of orange and purple and gold, people swore they could sometimes see 2 figures sitting on the porch of the old Whitmore ranch, holding hands and watching the world together, just as they had done for 60 years of marriage, and every day since in whatever came after. The story of Adam and Zara became more than just a story. It became a reminder that love could be found in the darkest places, that seeing someone truly had nothing to do with eyes and everything to do with heart, and that sometimes the person who saved you was also the person who would love you for the rest of your life and beyond. Their great-great-grandchildren still told the story, passing it down like a precious heirloom. They told it at weddings, reminding couples that love was a choice you made every day. They told it at family gatherings, reminding everyone where they came from. They told it to their own children, teaching them about courage and kindness and the power of seeing beyond the surface. The old ranch house still stood, maintained and cherished by each generation. The porch where Adam and Zara had shared so many evenings was preserved exactly as it had been, and family members still sat there to watch the sunset, feeling connected to the love story that had started everything. In the end, what Adam had bought at that auction in 1878 was not a bride. What he had bought was a chance to love and be loved, a chance to build something beautiful out of something broken, a chance to prove that the best things in life were not bought or sold, but given freely from one heart to another. And Zara, when her sight returned, and she finally saw the man who had loved her through her darkest days, did not see a buyer or a savior or a stranger. She saw Adam, the man who had described the world to her with poetry and patience, the man who had held her hand through storms both literal and metaphorical, the man who had loved her not despite her blindness but through it and beyond it. She saw, in other words, exactly what he had always been, her home, her heart, her forever. And that sight, once regained, never left her, Not for all the years they had together and not in all the years that came after. Because some things, once truly seen, could never be unseen. And love like theirs, once truly found, could never be lost.